Now, I'm going to share with you something that was reported to Fox News Digital that has not been investigated by the FBI, but allegedly there is a source that the FBI has had that has said Joe Biden made some $5 million off of a Burisma executive. Well, again, this hasn't been run down the rabbit hole, so we want to be very, very careful with these kinds of allegations. But I find it amazing that back in the day, right, 2016 came, and you had all of these people saying that the election was stolen by Donald Trump with the help of the Russians, and that the Russians had Donald Trump in their back pocket because of that so-called dossier. All of that turned out to be untrue. And yet, when you have some evidence that might just suggest Joe Biden and his son Hunter had a little more to do with Ukraine than maybe any of us originally thought, nobody's actually willing to talk about that. That's pretty remarkable. Welcome, everyone, to the program, a live edition, again, of the Trish Regan Show. So good to have you here. Please make sure that you subscribe if you have not already. We are brought to you in part by LegacyPMInvestments.com. We're going to talk more about the markets coming up momentarily because, wow, today was kind of a doozy, but you'd expect it, right, given what is going on with these banks, the regional ones. We're going to talk about that. But first, here we go. Finally, somebody has the guts to ask this question. And I'm talking about right here. We got a Newsweek article that came out today saying, does Ukraine have a kompromat on Joe Biden? Kompromat would be compromising material. In other words, is there some kind of dossier out there? And more remarkable, perhaps, is that it was written by a professor at a Massachusetts university, a Northeastern university, literally Northeastern University. He's a professor of political science there. I was joking with some friends earlier. He may actually be on his way to some podunk community college soon because he dared to say this. He dared to write this. But I encourage you to check it out. It's a very good piece in that this professor, Max Abrams, who, by the way, is the real deal, just wonderfully educated, an enormous background in international relations and in security issues. And I encourage you to read this in Newsweek because he gets into some of these questions that I think have to be addressed, that have to be asked in this environment right now. I mean, when you think about what we thus far know, consider that, well, there was that business partner, right, Tucker Carlson, that business partner business partner of Hunter Biden, who sat down with Tucker Carlson. That would be Mr. Archer. And Devin Archer told Tucker Carlson that, you know what, there was sort of this idea that you were buying influence. That was what they were selling, effectively, the Biden family. And so when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States of America, well, what do you know? Everybody came calling, right? You had Ukraine, you had China. Everybody had their hand out or hand up looking for a little bit of attention from the United States. And, well, Hunter Biden, via his father, had the ability to offer that. Here's Tucker speaking with Devin Archer about just exactly what was being provided. Watch.
Did he have a sophisticated understanding of regulation, do you think?
I think that he led a team that had a sophisticated.
Okay, because I lived in Washington a long time, around a lot of regulation. Also, a very complex area.
Absolutely. I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people. And obviously I know you're pointing to, the father being the key relationship.
Right. In other words, the big guy. That was the one that everybody kind of wanted some in with, and that was the key relationship. So the problem then becomes just exactly what was exchanged and what did Joe Biden know and what does Ukraine, right, have on him? Keep in mind, regardless of what you think about Ukraine and Russia, et cetera, here's the deal. It's costing us a ton of money, okay? And I say that as an economic journalist who's looking at the numbers and, we're not even talking adjusted for inflation here. We're talking about more money that was spent in the entire 20 years in Afghanistan. We have spent roughly, actually, I should be careful, about the same as 20 years in Afghanistan. It may be more now, maybe adjusted for inflation. It certainly is. But in other words, this is a lot of money that you're talking about that we're spending over there. And one has to wonder just exactly why we're doing as much as we are and why the heck, by the way, haven't we settled this? Like, how is it still going on? You know, some people are making money off of it. Anyway, Hunter Biden was paid millions of dollars, according to these allegations, by this Ukrainian energy firm, Burisma, despite, of course, having no actual qualifications. We know about the $83,000 that he was being paid every single month. Well, he and also Mr. Archer were both getting $83,000 each by Burisma. Now, part of the issue was that Burisma was being investigated by Viktor Shokin. Viktor Shokin was the prosecutor that was going after them, and it was investigating them for none other than fraud. Well, did the vice president of the United States actually make Shokin go away, and therefore that investigation go away? That's the big question, especially when you consider what Joe Biden said to the International Council Relations Group when they had that little meeting. And he talked about how, yeah, he got the guy fired. Well, Shokin just came out with a response to that, you see, and he's now speaking, saying that there was more to this, and that he does believe, he's careful with the allegations he's making, but he does believe that this firing was a direct result of him investigating none other than Burisma's funding of Hunter Biden. Here he is, he's speaking Ukrainian, I believe. Watch.
В Украине, но я практически уверен, что Байден прекрасно понимал, что я намеков о прекращении дела Бурисмы не воспринял. Я шел дальше, я и мои коллеги, и мы дойдем до логического завершения этой ситуации. Понимая это, Байден прилагал все усилия кулуарно, используя своих, так сказать, людей, в том числе и некоторых нардепов, в том числе Лещенко, Наема, другие были люди, а также активистов так называемых. Вот через них он и действовал, чтобы ни в коем случае не показать свою заинтересованность.
So this is Viktor Shokin coming out now with these allegations, which are pretty striking and pretty significant in light of, again, this question that nobody wants to talk about, which is, did Ukraine have something on Joe Biden? Do they have something currently on Joe Biden? Don't forget, like, everybody was willing to make these accusations about Trump quite readily. I mean, you can watch the tape and they were all wrong. You get a bunch of former spies, spooks, hacks out there now in the political arena saying, oh, but I'm convinced he did this. Not even I'm convinced he did. Like, there was such a definitiveness to it all that now leaves us all kind of like, whoa, wait a second. Why does nobody have any questions about all of this money that was exchanged? I mean, not even to mention the Chinese deals, et cetera. Well, the defense, if you would, one from Joe Biden is, look, my son did nothing wrong. How many times has he told us that? I mean, hey, he did admit to tax fraud. I mean, hey, I kind of consider that doing something wrong, as well as the whole gun thing while he was on drugs. But he said, no, my son did nothing wrong. Everybody's saying, hey, how dare you go after his son? You know, this is just a troubled kid my you know what. Anyway, that's the sort of party line. And then when it gets down to it and people say, well, wait a second, how did he really know about this business? And why is Archer telling us that there were 20 phone calls between Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and the clients? Why was the then vice president calling in some 20 times saying, hey, kid, you know, how you doing? And why was he sending a letter like this one to we'll get it eventually. This one, why was he sending a letter like this to Devon Archer, in which he wrote, Dear Devon, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon yesterday. I was having trouble getting away from President Hugh. I hope to get a chance to see you and talk again soon with Hunter. I so enjoyed our lunch. Thank you for coming. And then he writes in his handwriting, happy you guys are getting together. I mean, in other words, why was it? He knew something about the business. He certainly knew something. I mean, it wasn't all just smoke and mirrors and, oh, isn't it great? My kids doing this, that, and the other. Anyway, the party line, the defense, and we've got to be, in being fair, let's give him his due. This is what Representative Dan Goldman out of New York keeps saying, you know, hey, there's nothing wrong. They were just calling in to check on his son. Why?
Said that he has never spoken to anyone. He said that he had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings. If he says hello to someone that he sees his son with, is he supposed to say, hi, son? Oh, no, I'm not going to say hello to the other people at the table or the other people on the phone. It's kind of a preposterous premise to think that a father should not say hello to people that the son is at dinner with, and that is literally all the evidence is.
Was this like a party trick?
That's all it is. Nothing to see here. A party trick, as one of the reporters offered up. Look, according to the Newsweek piece, and again, it's an op-ed, so you've got to be just mindful of that. But this professor from Northeastern, is asking some really good questions. He writes, the latest evidence exposes the media's talking points as pure propaganda. On July 31st, 2023, that would just be a couple days ago, right? Devin Archer testified to the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Accountability about both Joe's relationship to Burisma and why he fired Shokin. Archer was Hunter Biden's close friend who served alongside him on the board of Burisma. Under oath, Archer testified that Burisma paid Hunter millions of dollars solely because his father was vice president. Burisma would have gone out of business without, quote, the brand, and the brand was Joe. Again, according to Archer's testimony. Per Archer, Joe Biden was involved in the racket. He was put on speakerphone in business meetings at least 20 times. So he seems to have kind of known something. Like, it's not like this kid was doing nothing. Like, it was important enough that he'd call him, say, hi, son, and say hi to all the business associates. This is something that Trump tried to bring up on the campaign trail back in 2020. Watch.
It's an open discussion, please.
No, it's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the vice president answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank.
By the World Bank, by all the CIA, by the FBI, by everybody, until, by the way, it wasn't discredited anymore. Right? Don't forget. New York Post, one of the oldest newspapers, started by Alexander Hamilton many, many years ago. One of the oldest newspapers in America, getting its Twitter account shut down because there were allegations that they were trafficking in misinformation because they were talking about how the FBI was investigating the laptop of Hunter Biden's. All that turns out to be true, of course, leaving Americans increasingly saying, well, wait a second, what do I believe? Who do I believe? And why is it that no one asks the obvious questions, except for a few of us, right, in the media, a few of us, I like to think honest brokers that actually want to get to the truth. Why is nobody asking the real questions about the money that was exchanged? I mean, I looked through those reports that have been provided by Treasury to the House Oversight Committee. And I can tell you this, it's something to see. I mean, it's public record. You can go and look at it. And it's pretty remarkable because you've got 20 LLCs that started up right after Joe Biden became vice president. Why all of a sudden 20 LLCs? And the money's going from here to here to here to here. Now, somebody might have a business, and I can use like a construction example, right? If you're a contractor and you build houses and maybe you own some of the supply chains. And so you've got your wood business and you got your brick business and then you got, this and that. And maybe you do it for accountability, literally accountability. So you can keep track of what this is and what that is. But in the case of the Biden family, they've got these 20 LLCs and the money's going from here to there to here to there. And that strikes me on its surface as rather strange. There's also a lot of money going through these accounts. Now, if they're not selling the name, right, what else are they selling? Now, is it illegal to sell the name? No. I mean, you can sell access. This is what these lobbying firms indeed are all about. But when your dad's the vice president or your uncle or your brother is the vice president, then suddenly it gets a little bit more tricky. I'm going to at least give Bill Clinton this, right? I'll give him credit for waiting until after he was out of office. Why was it such a big deal? Everybody was going after CGI while Hillary was running because she was running. And people were saying, what were you doing after the fact? And do we have to still continue worrying about these financial relationships that you've established through the Clinton Global Initiative? Well, again, at least Bill waited until he was out of office. In this case, we don't know, but it looks like Hunter was trafficking and stuff while his dad was there. And I think that what we at least owe ourselves as Americans is an explanation for all of this. So I credit what the House Oversight Committee is trying to do. Again, Treasury provided them with a lot of information. Part of this included 170 suspicious activity reports, SARs, as they're known in the industry. Now, that's kind of a big deal to have 170 SARs, suspicious activity reports. I mean, banks don't really like reporting this stuff because as soon as they report it, well, what do you know? Treasury's like breathing down their neck. And so they don't love it, but they have all these rules about knowing the customer, et cetera. So they'll do what they can on an individual basis to make sure that everything's on the up and up. But if they don't think things are fully on the up and up, and there is this international fund transferring going on, if they are worried at all, then they go and they file a suspicious activity report with Treasury. Now, a few might be something, but to have 170 of them, that's peculiar. That's a lot. And so again, it gets back to what exactly was going on and why did nobody address this? Apparently it came up when he was vice president and it was sort of shut down by the vice president's office. Don't worry about that. But there were some people in the White House that were concerned that it just didn't look right, didn't pass the smell test, so to speak. So here we are now looking at what I do believe could be, if it turns out to be true, one of the biggest political and economic scandals to have ever surfaced. And it's a tragic thing to see because I just go back to my sense of being an American, being proud of being American, and that's that we're above this level of corruption. And what might turn out to be true, if in fact this is proven out, is that we're no better than any banana republic out there, for goodness sakes. I mean, we're effectively allowing our politicians to be bought and sold, and that is wrong. Hey everyone, Trish Regan here. If you enjoyed that clip, please do me the favor of subscribing to the channel. Just hit that little subscribe button right over there. Did I do that right? Not quite, but you know where it is. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you get the alerts, and I'll see you back on the show.